How did you feel when your first child was born?
I had prayed for a healthy child, and this applies to my other two children. So my thoughts on having my first child also apply to my other two. God answered my prayer, and we have been blessed with three healthy children. I only wanted the best for each of them. To think of the responsibility of raising a child can be overwhelming. I don't know how anyone can accomplish this without help from the Lord. I suppose faith helps you navigate all the emotions you face as a new or young parent. I knew that we were responsible for this tiny being. I was filled with love for each child. The business of feeding, changing, and helping to sleep, which was very little, took over so many times, and I did not have the time to stop and ponder how I was doing as a parent. I look back and wish I had taken things slower and savored the moments more. I can say that each child with their own unique personality has added so much richness to my life. I love them dearly and am so thankful that I was privileged to be their mother.
What would you consider your motto?
I think my motto is always try to do your best. I have that innate nature to want to do a good job at whatever I do. Sometimes in school, I would be way over my head, especially in a college math class. That would be very frustrating to me. I recall one time near the end of finals when I didn't understand the math we were covering. I decided that I just had to buckle down and dig for it. I pulled a couple of all-nighters and finally started to understand. I could have saved all the agony if I had asked for help or paid attention more. However, I managed to get through the class okay. I believe that if you accept a job or commit yourself to a project, you should always strive to do your best. That does not mean to be perfect. I look back and feel that I could have done better, but I was doing the best I could at that time in my life. Granna, where were you born? What was your childhood like? I was born in Calhoun, Georgia, and when I was born, the doctor told my mother to hold on. There's another one coming. This was the first thought that there might be twins. And then there were two, Bill and me, so they had to get two of everything. Mother said that we stayed in the same crib for a long time. She said we were easy babies because we entertained each other. It was in 1946, right after World War II, and supplies were scarce. The local hardware store called Daddy when they received their first washing machine and let Daddy purchase it. Bill always seemed to get the most attention. As I remember it, he got to go to the Howdy Doody show in Atlanta for a live taping, and I was left at home. One time he was not feeling well, and Mother said he had lost his appetite. Later that day, they found me looking under the house. When asked what I was doing, I replied that I was looking for Bill's appetite. My eyes were a little crossed when I was young. I started wearing glasses when I was 5. The doctor thought my tonsils might be poisoning my eyes, so I had them removed. I remember coming home from the hospital after a night's stay. I went immediately to my swing set and sat in the swing in my nightgown. I loved having ice cream. Mother's sister, Ethel, and her son Eddie would come down from Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania, most every Christmas. I remember that one Christmas Eve, we had all of Mother's siblings and their families at our house, and Daddy had to leave for work. About an hour later, Santa was at our front door. I was amazed. I told Mother that Santa had shoes just like my daddy's. Grandma, Daddy's mother, lived out of Calhoun, and I remember going to her house every Christmas afternoon to eat with all of Daddy's siblings and their families. Mother and Daddy had great friends in their Sunday school class. Most Saturday nights, these friends would come over and eat Mother's chocolate cake, play the piano, and sing. They always had a lot of laughter going on. I loved it because I received a lot of attention. Mother's brother, Paul, whom we called Bud, lived with us while we lived in Calhoun. He and Daddy always had the latest cars. Daddy was a Chevrolet man, and Bud was a Buick man. When we went to West Virginia and PA every summer, we always had a nice car to ride in. Daddy and Bud both worked in Marietta, about an hour away. They rode with Mr. Acree every day, and I would always be waiting for them to come home in the afternoon. Bud worked at Lockheed building planes, and Daddy worked at Tumpain doing electrical contracting work. Not bad for two school dropouts. Both had to quit school so they could work to support their families. One year, we went to Pennsylvania to visit Mother's sisters, and Daddy was going to leave us there for a few days. Mother was helping Ethel can veggies from her garden. Daddy was going to drive to New York to visit his sister Betty. I did not want him to go, so I found a nail and put it in the dirt drive with dirt around it. I thought that if he drove over it, he would have a flat tire and wouldn't leave. When I was about 5, Daddy started preaching. We left Ekota Baptist Church, and he began pastoring at Plainville Baptist Church, followed by West Union Baptist Church. When I was 8, Daddy and Mother decided that we needed to be closer to his work, and we moved to Marietta. Bud moved with us and lived with us for 3 more years. I had completed 3rd grade at Calhoun Elementary. Granna, tell us some fun times from your childhood. I remember being a happy child, so nothing really stuck out in my early years as making me extra happy. I was fortunate to have loving parents and an extended family. I do remember when I became a Christian, that was a pleasant time that has turned into a state of peace and joy, not dependent on external circumstances throughout my adult years. I suppose I can say I have 4 special happy times. Can you guess? I was in college and had no plans for marriage, and really thought that I would not marry until sometime after graduating from college. I did not know that the happiness of marriage was near for me. When JW and I started dating, it wasn't a pleasant time. We would date and then we wouldn't date. When we finally made a commitment to each other in marriage, I thought my happiness was over the moon. I was thrilled when I found out I was pregnant with Jeffrey. When he was born, happiness continued unabated. We had a great time with him. He was our non-sleeper, but we still decided to keep him. Ha ha. We wanted to start a family, so I was ecstatic when I found out I was pregnant with Jason. We wanted a girl, but I didn't really care about it. I had gotten used to a boy, so that would be fine. I just wanted a healthy baby. Again, my happiness was immense when Jason was born, and we welcomed our second little one. Jeffrey had not been a good sleeper, so Jason was a most pleasant surprise because he was a good sleeper. We thought our family was complete for the time being. JW was contemplating additional graduate studies, so that was on our agenda. I was more surprised than happy when I found out about Jody. Of course, it didn't take long to embrace the idea of a third child, and true happiness ensued once again. We thought we would enjoy having 3 sons and were surprised when Jody turned out to be a girl. Oh, the joy of dressing a real live doll. Our happiness at the birth of our 3 children has never wavered. Of course, there were challenges, but they enriched our lives so much. And then, because of them, my happiness has been further extended with the addition of Kristen, Heather, and Jeff. And then those precious grands came along: Kaylin, Andrew, Daniel, Ian, Ben, and Sam. Granna, I won't tell anyone. Did you play pranks? I was not one to pull pranks as I was growing up. But living with J.W. Wallace instilled in me the idea to always have fun. I recall one Sunday at Second Baptist when he was delivering a pocket sermon to the children. He had a rock in his pocket to illustrate a biblical story, but casually mentioned that the rock was like the biscuits his wife made. Now you know that I am not a biscuit maker. Everyone had a good laugh and he forgot his comment. At the time, we always ate lunch at home on Sundays. Partly because of the amount of time involved, we always had to return to church early for evening worship, but mainly because of the cost. As I was heading home that day after church, I thought about preparing lunch. Now, I already said I am not a biscuit maker, but for some unknown reason, I had decided on Saturday evening to make some angel biscuit dough. They are made with yeast but have a biscuit texture. They were ready for me to form into biscuits when I got home. But I was also thinking of the children's sermon. I asked you boys to go out by the pool and get me some pebbles. I put some in a couple of the biscuits I was making. I did wash them first. I got lunch on the table, and the whole family was ready to eat. The biscuits were not quite done, so after the blessing, I went to the oven and got them out. Instead of putting them on a dish, I put one on each plate. I made sure JW got one with the pebbles. He was talking, eating, and bit into his biscuit. He looked in amazement at what he was eating and thought he was eating mushrooms in the biscuit, but it was too hard. We all started laughing. I told him I wanted to live up to the reputation of making biscuits as hard as rocks. He said, "What if I had broken a tooth?" And I told him it would have made me feel.
What is one of the bravest things you've ever done? And what was the outcome?
This topic certainly doesn't describe me. I do not consider myself brave at all. However, the topic got me thinking about an adventure that I indeed would not have undertaken on my own. When Jeffrey was a student at Georgia Tech, he became acquainted with some counselors at the JH Ranch in Northern California. As a result of that friendship, he worked 3 summers at the ranch. It was a Christian wilderness ranch designed to immerse students in the Word and the natural world. And one summer that Jeffrey was there, he asked us to come out and experience some of the ranch life that the students did. We arranged to fly to San Francisco, get a car, and travel to Northern California. Gigi, Jody, JW, and I made the trip. Jason was busy leading worship at Super Wow and was unable to go with us. We saw beautiful sights during our road trip. We saw Mount Shasta covered in snow in the middle of summer, and we visited Crater Lake in Oregon. Finally, we got to the ranch, and Jeffrey, along with some other Georgia Tech students, met us. We were informed that we were to experience the ranch just like the students' quiet time, worship, a trapeze into a lake, a bloppy, an intense ropes course, climbing a tall pole, sleeping on the creek bank, and riding the rapids of the Klamath River. Gigi and I observed all the on-campus activities, and JW and Jody participated in several of them. I remember JW climbing the 747 and being unable to stand when he reached the top. I thought that was tremendously brave of him, even to try. Jeffrey belayed him down and asked if he was afraid. JW said yes, he was, and Jeffrey said it was okay to be scared. Gigi stayed at the ranch and enjoyed going to the dining hall and talking to the counselors, while JW, Jody, and I went on an adventure, which I consider brave. The campers were to go whitewater rafting down the Klamath River. Jeffrey, Ty, Ryan, and several others were whitewater guides. Where they got their training, I do not know. We drove and met the campers in the late afternoon. The guides were also our cooks. After an evening meal, we settled in our sleeping bags under the stars of northern CA and on the pebbly creek bank. The stars were magnificent, so many of them. We had a good night's sleep and woke to the guides cooking us eggs, bacon, and toast for breakfast. We had to get a good meal in before our adventure. Of course, we were given intense instructions because these were Class 4 plus rapids. We were given the privilege of being in Jeffrey's raft. We listened intently to all the instructions in case we came near a rock or got into any trouble. There was a possibility that the raft would turn over. It seemed intense, but I was really concerned when we were not allowed to get in our raft until we prayed. We came to Dragon's Tooth and got out of the water. Jeffrey explained the danger of this area and the possibility of capsizing, and we prayed again. We made it through Dragon's Tooth and got out of the water to wait for the other rafts to make it through. I then asked Jeffrey if he had ever capsized there, and he said he had the day before. Oh my! Although there were dangers, it was absolutely thrilling and incredibly fun. We reached a spot on the bank and had lunch that the guides had prepared and brought with us in our rafts. Sandwiches were so good. They then told us that we were going on a hike into the woods to go to Little Hawaii. This was an oasis in the middle of the woods where snow melt, water pooled in a deep crevice, and the guides would climb up on the high rocks and dive in. To get there, after a short hike, we had to swim in the snow melt water to reach Little Hawaii. I am not a strong swimmer, and I feel that I would not have made it had I not been wearing a life jacket. The coldness of the water took my breath away, but like many trials in life, the effort of getting in that cold water was worth it when we got to Little Hawaii. It was so tropical and beautiful. However, I became increasingly concerned as I watched Jeffrey climb the rocks and dive in. After a while, we swam out of the area, hiked, and got back in our rafts. Our adventure concluded when we successfully navigated the rapids. It was something I would never have initiated, but I was so glad I was part of that experience.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
There is no perfect happiness on this earth. I do believe I have peace and joy in all circumstances because of my relationship with Jesus Christ, my Savior. There is a difference between happiness and joy. Joy is inward and does not depend on outward circumstances. I believe happiness is dictated by what is happening around you. To me, as a wife and mother, happiness occurs when my family is happy. When any one member is going through stress or anxiety, I am feeling their pain as well. And of course, when all the family gathers together, that is my happiest time. It takes juggling of schedules and effort to plan menus and events, but it is all worth it when we are all together. It is so much fun to watch the grands interact and have fun being together. It is fun to watch the adult children enjoying each other's company, as well as watching the adults interact with the children. Each year it gets harder to get together with all. This will become increasingly challenging each year as the grandchildren attend college, participate in high school activities, and play sports. I treasure each time we get together. So happiness is my family being happy and together.
What is one of your favorite trips that you've taken? What made it great?
Kaylin was our trip to Vietnam in May 2017. It was hard getting there, long flights, but worth it. We were on a small tour, and all of us were traveling with only our partner. That made all of us more interested in getting to know each other. We got to explore sites in big cities, stay overnight on a boat in Halong Bay, make 2 in-country flights, and experience cultural sites in several small villages. We stayed at a luxury hotel each night and spent our days in the villages. We were in a crude boat and floated down the Mekong Delta. We got to watch rice paper and rice crackers being made in a private home. So many experiences and great food. I think we enjoyed it so much because it was so different from anything we had ever done. But my favorite trip was our 50th anniversary family cruise to Alaska. We all flew to Seattle and met up there. All of our family was there, 14 in all. We explored Seattle's Army surplus store the morning before we got on the ship. Life on a cruise is incredibly laid back, and our entire family had the opportunity to occupy ourselves in various ways. Even though it was cold and windy as we sailed from Seattle, it was not long before all the grandsons were in the hot pool on our floor of the ship. I found out later that it was for adults, but that was okay. They were having fun. Food is always plentiful on a ship. Our rooms were all together, and we would meet up most mornings at the breakfast buffet. Anything you would want to eat was offered, and then there were the ice cream, pizza, and burger places close to the pools. We would all snack at will during the day. I had asked that we all eat together the first night in the dining hall. We ordered from the menu and were treated to a great dining experience. Of course, Sam ordered a cheeseburger and Ben ordered chicken tenders every night. There were so many choices. JW and I especially enjoyed that first night. The dining hall could not seat all 14 of us at one table, but it had a table for 6 and another for 8 right next to each other. We got to eat at the table with the grands, and it was grand. The waiter wanted to impress Sam, being the youngest, and brought him a huge ice cream dish with sprinkles, chocolate syrup, cherries, and Cool Whip. But Sam only wanted a single small dish of ice cream. Then they decided to meet up every evening to eat together in the dining hall. We did get to eat privately in a special dining area one time and were treated superbly. When the children got bored, they explored the ship and found their favorite place, a bar with a dartboard in the back. That is where they were whenever we saw them missing. They always showed back up. Our excursions were a lot of fun. We hiked in Genoa, went to a salmon bake, got to ride in a dog sled, and watched a logger show. We had so many great times together as a family. It was enjoyable to sit back and watch them interact with one another. Family time is the best.
Who inspires you?
I watch people who have used their faith to do life. Their life may have been an easy one, and they are grateful for every blessing that they have. They are not ashamed to give God the glory for what they have and for their health and family. Their life may have been a hard one. Many of these individuals could have become bitter with life and their relationships, but have chosen to rely on their faith to get them through the rough times. Examples: young parents with a child with special needs. They show tremendous love and care for that child while carrying on with life in as normal a way as they can. People with a chronic illness that requires them to alter parts of their life, and they keep on the best they can. People with unexpected terminal diagnosis, and they rely on what is ahead for them in eternity. People with busy schedules of juggling jobs, caring for children, and trying to stay active in their church. People in different jobs where they care for people whose lives depend on them, teachers who show care for all thee. When you define wise, there are a variety of definitions depending on how your heart defines it. I have learned from many wise people over the years, but when I saw this title, I immediately thought of Marianne Sanders. She taught me so much by example of being a virtuous Christian lady. Ian, I wish you could have known Mary Ann, Ralph, David, and Steve were the epitome of the great South Georgia farmer and family. They were devoted to their Lord, their home and love for each other, their farm and family, their church, and their community. They could easily have been the farm family of the year. Ralph farmed with his dad and brother on the family farm. It was a very successful farm. The boys were being taught about the farm in case they chose to follow in the family farming business, which they did not. An insect bit Ralph. I believe it was a mosquito, and he developed encephalitis as a result. This illness profoundly impacted this brilliant young farmer in a way that changed their entire life. His case was severe and left him with reduced mental function, but he still had memories of what life had been like. Mary Ann had to step up and handle the business end of their part of the farm. The boys had to step up to take care of the property and the house they lived in. Ralph had to give up his work at the farm. He was unable to handle any of the dangerous farming equipment. We did not know the Sanders family when this happened to them, but knowing Mary Ann, she went through a tremendous grief process, but quickly stepped up to the plate to adjust to their new normal. All her hopes for their future were drastically changed, and that meant her life was changed. Mary Ann became the driver, Ralph's health care provider, and advocate. Ralph was stubborn at times, and she would call JW to help her with her reasoning with him. She faces all these obstacles with grace. The only way she could have done this was to rely on her faith in the Lord. She had so much support in the church and community, but sometimes that is not enough. You have to rely on your faith. She wrote a letter to us right before we moved to Vienna. She volunteered to keep Jeffrey and Jason 2 years and 4 months. While we settled in after our move, I knew her and wondered if she was capable of caring for 2 young ones. Boy, were my doubts unfounded. She loved children and kept the 2-year-olds in Sunday school. Miss Mary Ann has loved many children. What a treasure. She was the most compassionate, loving person I could have met in Vienna. We developed a deep friendship. She would call and volunteer to do things to help me, even before I knew that I needed help. She could have become a very bitter person, Ian, when her life changed, but she handled all the changes with grace. I learned a great deal from her simply by observing her. She put her faith into action. She showed love and interest in all who came near her. She loved Ralph and her boys unconditionally. She was always volunteering in any way she could at the church. She loved our family. She always invited the guest preacher for a revival and us to her house one night for a meal. Ralph was also a gracious host. She loved to help. One Christmas, we could not find a crisscross crash set for Jason. She knew how badly he wanted it. She was going to Albany for a doctor's appointment for Ralph and called to say she would stop by their big toy store to see if they had the item. Sure enough, they did, and she brought it to us. But when we set it out on Christmas Eve, part of the track was missing. Santa wrote Jason a letter and said Rudolph took the curve too fast, lost some of the track. He assured Jason that on the way to Calhoun the day after Christmas, he was sure his parents would stop at a store and find one with all the tracks. And sure enough, we did. Mary Ann loved that story. She made sure Jeffrey had a birthday party on his 5th birthday while I was in the hospital for Jody's birth. Mary Ann made lemonade out of the lemons that life had given her. She was a dear saint, and I will always cherish the many memories I have of her. There are many more examples of people who rely on their faith to get them through good and bad times in life. I am also inspired by people who show joy and happiness in all they do. You might think that they have an ideal life. Some do, but some do not. They do not let external circumstances rob them of the joy of life and relationships. When you define wise, there are a variety of definitions, depending on how your heart defines it. I have learned from many wise people over the years, but when I saw this title, I immediately thought of Marianne Sanders. She taught me so much by example of being a virtuous Christian lady.
What are some of your special talents?
What quality?
I'm not sure I have special talent, but I do have special interest. As all 3 children celebrated their birthdays, I would sometimes attempt to decorate a cake for them. When we lived in Dublin, I took a cake decorating class and made some cakes, but then I didn't try decorating them. But when Kaylin was celebrating her first birthday, I thought that I would try a cake. It was baked in a molded cake pan of a standing duck. She loved rubber duckies at that time. After I took it out of the pan, the head fell off. I needed it to be stable since we had to take it to Birmingham. So I made another one and reinforced it with a wooden rod, then decorated it in yellow. I also made her a small one to play with on her first birthday, so that started a tradition. She has had a cake for her birthday every year since. Many times she didn't receive it on her birthday, but she did later as we celebrated with her. For their first birthday, Andrew had a Noah's Ark cake, Daniel had a ball, Ian had Curious George, Ben had Mickey Mouse, and Sam had a penguin. I have made cakes for them all on their birthdays. At one time, I had a PowerPoint slideshow of them, but it is no longer up to date. It was fun. I have always enjoyed sewing and making many of our clothes, including leisure suits when they were popular, as well as other items for the children. One fun project was to create Kaylin's version of most of the Disney character outfits. For Andrew and Daniel, I made Revolutionary War costumes. For Ian, I made a character he wanted. Ben and Sam received hand-me-downs. I have made curtains, pillows, and covered chairs for all three of our children's homes. Ben, anything I do that involves my family has been fun. Granna, what inspires you most about your friends? Daniel, I think of all my friends who are so special to me, and they all have different qualities. Some are loud and jovial, some are quiet and happy, but there are some common bonds. My friends have an appreciation for life. They do not take a day on this earth for granted, nor their relationships with other people. Most of my friends are Christians, but not all of them are, and that is not a criterion for friendship. In fact, as a Christian, I am to develop friendships with unbelievers and influence them to have a personal relationship with Christ. I have friends with whom I agree and disagree politically, and again, that is not a criterion for friendship. Friends treasure other friends. They are willing to spend time with them, and since we are in a pandemic, talk to them on the phone. I have friends with whom I have not spoken or communicated in some time, and when we do, it's as if we had never been apart. We have experienced life together, some good times and some rough times. We have a history together, and I think that bonds people in very emotional ways. I love the way my friends love to laugh and find good in every situation. That goes a long way in fostering connections and building each other up. I trust my friends to be who they claim to be. I trust them not to be someone else and talk badly about me when I am not around. Those people are not true friends. To make a friend, you must invest time in getting to know a person and show concern for their interests. I treasure the friendships I have developed over the years. I am blessed. Granna, what is one of your fondest childhood memories? Kaylin, when I was born, we lived on Peter St. and Calhoun. Mother's brother Paul lived with us. The house was a two-bedroom house, but when the twins were born, they added on to the house. Bud had his room, Mother and Dad had theirs, and Bill and I had one. It was just a normal thing for all five of us to be living together. Daddy and Bud rode to Marietta every day for work. Then BUD decided that living in Marietta would be a lot more convenient. So when I was 8, we moved to a three-bedroom house in Marietta. Um, Again, each pair had a bedroom. My mother became pregnant with Michael when I was 9. He had to be in the room with Mother and Daddy for a while. We rearranged rooms, and I had a room, Bill and Michael had a room, Bud had a room, and Mother and Daddy had a small den as their bedroom. It worked well for us. When Daddy was pastoring the Tunai Church in Cherokee County, they built a pastorium, and we moved there. Bud did not move with us. He rented a mobile home in Marietta, but came to see us every Thursday evening for dinner. I had an excellent, spacious room. Bill and Michael had theirs, and Mother and Daddy had a big bedroom all to themselves. What was unusual about our living arrangement was that with 6 people living in the house, we only celebrated 3 birthdays per year. Mother and Bud were twins, Bill and I are twins, and Michael was born on Daddy's birthday. Mother said that Michael was due July 9, but Daddy said he would be born on his birthday. Mother went into quick labor the evening of July 3. As he was slowly driving to the hospital, Mother told him to hurry up He said, okay, he was thinking that if he moved more slowly, they would not get to the hospital until July 4, and the baby would be born on his birthday. Well, Michael waited and was born on July 4. He was my baby doll to play with. I enjoyed him so much.
What is one of the strangest things that has ever happened to you?
When I reflect on the strange things that have happened in my life, I often look back and see the hand of God at work. So strange things are not really weird or coincidences. It is God working in my life or a situation I was in. I recall a mission trip we took to Burkina Faso, West Africa in 1996. David Brown, our minister of music at McDonough Road, had been a missionary there. His dream was to take a team along with his family from our church and spend 10 days doing mission work in Burkina Faso. We went in the summer of 1996. Our team was tasked with leading a pastors' conference, a VBS, building an associational building for the local group of churches, and organizing a music festival. I will focus on the music festival, although there were many enriching experiences during those 10 days. We hosted a music festival featuring choirs from surrounding churches. They would come in at night and we would sing in our native language. David wanted these choirs to have something to take back home with them and had ordered banners for us to take to them as their gift from us. We were told that there would be no more than TWELV choirs participating, so we took TWELV banners. When we got there, we had 13 choirs. David counted the banners and counted 12. We had arranged with one choir that we would send them a banner after we got back home. The banners were given out on the last night of the festival. A representative from each of the 13 choirs was on the stage. As David was giving out the banners, he would say something to the representative in their native language. As he got to the last one, he still had a banner. We had 13 banners with us that night, and each choir got a banner. God allowed us to miscount or miraculously provided the extra banner for our choirs in the festival. That mission trip was filled with numerous ways the Lord provided for us.